Napoleon Bonaparte was born on August 15, 1769, on the island of Corsica, which was then a French territory. His family was of Italian descent, and his father was a lawyer who served as the Corsican representative at the court of Louis XVI. As a child, Napoleon was sent to a military school in France, where he excelled in mathematics and history. He graduated from school at the age of 16 and was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the French army. Napoleon quickly rose through the military ranks and became a general at the age of 26. He led the French army to successive victories in Italy and staged a coup d'état in 1799, becoming the first consul of France. As first consul, Napoleon implemented a series of reforms that modernized France's legal system, education system, and economy. He also expanded French territory through a series of military campaigns, including the Napoleonic Wars. Napoleon's military campaigns were characterized by brilliant tactics and his ability to inspire his soldiers. He defeated the Austrian, Prussian, and Russian armies and established the French Empire, which stretched from Spain to Poland. In 1804, Napoleon declared himself Emperor of France and continued to expand the French Empire through military conquests. However, his campaign ultimately led to his downfall. In 1812, he invaded Russia, but the harsh Russian winter and the tactics of the Russian army led to the destruction of his army. In 1814, Napoleon was forced to abdicate and was exiled to the island of Elba. However, he fled Elba in 1815 and returned to France, where he briefly held power. However, he was defeated at the Battle of Waterloo and exiled again, this time to the island of St. Helena. Napoleon spent the rest of his life in exile in St. Helena, where he wrote his memoirs and discussed his life and career. He died on May 5, 1821 at the age of 51. His body was returned to France in 1840 and buried in a mausoleum at Les Invalides in Paris. Napoleon's legacy is complex and controversial. He is remembered as one of the greatest military commanders in history, as well as a controversial figure who had a significant impact on the course of European history. His military campaigns and reforms transformed France and Europe, but his ambition and desire for power also led to war and suffering. Now we want to discuss the Waterloo War in detail. The Battle of Waterloo was fought on June 18, 1815, in Waterloo, Belgium, between the French army led by Napoleon Bonaparte and the Allied forces, which included forces from Great Britain, the Netherlands, and Prussia. This battle was the culmination of a series of campaigns that took place after Napoleon returned from exile on the island of Elba in Europe. The French army of about 72,000 men was stationed on the ridge overlooking the village of Waterloo. Allied forces under the command of the Duke of Wellington, with about 68,000 troops, were stationed on the opposite side of the valley. The battle began in the late morning, and the French army launched a series of attacks on the Allied lines. The initial French attacks were successful, and they were able to capture the farmhouse of La Haye-Sainte, a key position in the Allied line. However, the Allied forces were able to hold their ground, and the French offensive began to falter. The arrival of Prussian troops, led by Field Marshal Gebhard Leberecht von Blücher, also helped to turn the tide of battle in favor of the Allies. The battle was fierce and bloody, and both sides suffered heavy losses. The French army was well equipped and trained, but in the end they could not break the Allied lines. On the other hand, the Allied forces were able to hold their positions and launch counterattacks that pushed the French back. As the day wore on, the French army ran out of ammunition and supplies, and their morale began to falter. In the late afternoon, Allied forces launched a final assault on the French lines that broke the French army's resolve. The French army began to retreat, and the Allied forces pursued them and inflicted heavy casualties. The Battle of Waterloo was a decisive victory for the Allied forces and marked the end of Napoleon's reign as Emperor of France. The battle was a turning point in European history and is often seen as the end of the Napoleonic era.